So this is the NuPhy Air60 HE. This is a low-profile Hall effect keyboard that features the new low-profile gateron jade switches. This keyboard is jam-packed with features such as SOCD or Rappy Snappy mode and has pretty amazing performance stats. This is a 8K polling and scanning keyboard, so do with that what you wish, but it is nice to see NuPhy is putting out products that fit the current market. So let's dive a little bit deeper. First, we can talk about the keyboard's aesthetics and keycaps. This keyboard does come with these translucent purple keycaps on the right side of the keyboard. I really like the way that these look, but they do include keycaps with the standard legends if you are not a fan of those. One thing to note is that these keycaps are not shine through, but when gaming in the dark, I didn't run into any issues. The backlight RGB that the keyboard provides was enough for the legends to still be visible enough when typing in the dark. Also included is a NuPhy keycap puller and a 59-inch rubber cable that matches the keyboard. This keyboard does look like a pretty standard 60% keyboard. It's weighing in at 541 grams on my scale. Now comparing that to something like the Polar 65, for example, the Polar 65 is coming in at 1006 grams, so almost double the NuPhy keyboard. It doesn't feel light to the point of being cheap, but considering that it is low profile and doesn't have an entirely aluminum case, this thing is on the lighter side of 60% keyboards. The design of this keyboard is very thin and in my opinion very aesthetically pleasing. In the top left of the keyboard, you do have a switch to select the different modes you have set for the keyboard in the software. I will show you guys how to do this later in the video, but I do enjoy this feature, especially when switching from gaming modes to just my normal typing modes to work on various different projects. Half of the keyboard does have this aluminum casing on the top, and on the bottom of the keyboard, it is full ABS plastic. There is some rubberized feet on the bottom as well as some adjustable feet if you would like to adjust the angle of the keyboard for a different typing experience. There isn't much to say about the right side of the keyboard, but on the left side, there is a USB-C port. This is now my second keyboard I own that has the USB-C port on the right side, and I'm just not a fan of this. I find that it requires an especially long cable to make this viable, and it just adds unnecessary hassle in my opinion. Just looking here in the corner, you can see how far that I have to run this cable to even be able to plug this into the side of the keyboard. It's just not practical for my setup. I think that putting the USB-C port on the top of the keyboard could make a world of a difference and overall just improve the quality of life a lot. I may be alone on this issue though, as my PC is pretty far away from where my keyboard sits on my desk. Aside from that issue though, I do think NuPhy did a great job with this keyboard and I do enjoy the overall layout. I wasn't expecting the low profile jade switches to sound as good as they did. This spacebar doesn't sound great, but it doesn't feel as bad as it sounds. I opted for the magnetic Jade Pro switches, and I'm not upset with them at all. There is two different options when purchasing this keyboard. You can either opt for the regular Jades or the Jade Pros. The regular Jades have 30 GF of initial force, and the Jade Pros have 40 GF of initial force. The 40 GF isn't too heavy for me by any means, but if you do prefer the lowest actuation force possible, I would recommend getting the regular Jades. I didn't have any noticeable stem wobble, and I felt these switches offered a very premium typing experience. It's also important to mention that these switches are hot swappable, so if you do want to switch them out down the line, you are able to do so. I found the ergonomics of this keyboard to be much more comfortable than your standard keyboard. The low profile switches allow for your wrists to be at a more natural typing angle in my opinion, and overall reduce cramping and fatigue. Paired with the NuPhy wrist rest that, by the way, looks amazing on my desk, the typing experience was very comfortable. I did see a couple people talking about how this actually caused them more fatigue, and that definitely was not my experience, but I figured I'd just throw that in just in case there is anybody out there that's had that experience with low profile keyboards before. As far as the performance, this thing feels super fast. Low profile keyboards are known for being very fast due to the little amount of switch travel that is necessary for an actuation, but when combining that with rapid trigger, it's pretty much as fast as it gets. In games like Valorant, the responsiveness felt amazing. I had zero complaints. I don't really feel that keyboards make the biggest difference in my gameplay, especially in TAC FPS games, but I have been playing Fortnite recently and the low profile switches made it hard for me to feel consistent with my building. I think this really comes down to personal preference though, but for games that require a lot of movement and timing, I just wasn't able to perform to the best of my ability on this keyboard. I don't have the tools on hand to do my own latency testing, but I will throw in a clip from AimAdapt's video where he did in-depth testing of the latency. I will also leave the link to his full review in the description as well.
When it comes to performance of the Air60 HE, I did run this through my solenoid test with my high-speed camera and compared it next to the WOOTING 60 HE. I always put out a disclaimer for this test in all my videos. Just to be clear, this is not the most accurate way to test out the latency, as there can be a bunch of different varying factors that can actually alter the result of these tests. So please do bear that in mind as you're watching this. With that being said, I am doing this just for fun to kind of get an idea on where it sits. This was going back and forth and trading blows with the WOOTING 60 HE. I actually ran the test on both of them 20 times as they were kind of neck and neck to one another. For the press, they did come out with this one winning 10 times, where the WOOTING 60 HE came out ahead 10 times. But on the release, this one just very slightly pulled ahead, winning 11 out of the 20 times, and obviously the WOOTING 60 HE won 9 times on the release.
He basically concluded that this keyboard is just as fast, if not faster, than the WOOTING. So if you're looking for the best of the best performance, the Air60 definitely does provide that. On the website for the NuPhy software, it's just nuphy.io. This is where I said when you switch the little switch on the back of the keyboard, you can change to different modes. I'll show you guys my gaming mode. So let me flip the switch. Automatically shows that it was switched. Then we can click in here, and on the first page, you can bind different keys. I haven't used this. I'm sure it works great. Next is the trigger settings. For my gaming profile, I pretty much just use it on W, A, S, and D and control. You can change your actuation point. I'm using 0.1. You can change your dead zone config. I have initial at 0.1, bottom out 0.0. Here is my rapid trigger settings. I have my press activate 0.01, release deactivate 0.01, separate press and release sensitivity turned on, as well as continuous rapid trigger settings. This is what I've found best for Valorant. Do with this what you will. You can also use this little model here, and it'll show you what settings you have and what they do specifically, which I think is pretty cool. Then there is a macro recording section. Again, I have not used this. And then the lighting effects, I just have the wave on a speed of 2 and brightness of 40. The lighting on this keyboard is really beautiful, and I have messed around with some of these different settings, and they all look great. And then there is the mode settings. You can lock your Windows key, lock Alt F4, Alt Tab. I have gaming optimization turned on. I'm really not sure how much this affects, but I just turned it on because I do use this keyboard for gaming. You can change the tick rate of your keyboard. You can change this setting, which should eliminate switch wobble, but I really haven't had any issues with switch wobble on this keyboard. And then you can also change the polling rate of your keyboard if you're experiencing any performance issues. Overall, a really great software. This is easily one of my favorite web softwares that I've ever used. This is close to WOOTING in my opinion. There's no profiles, which I think would make it a lot better, but it's still really, really clean and really good. In conclusion, NuPhy did an amazing job with this keyboard. When reading on Reddit, a lot of people were excited for low profile Hall effect keyboards, and NuPhy definitely delivered here. Retailing at $120, I do think that this keyboard is fairly priced as well. When comparing this to the $175 that the WOOTING costs, I feel like this keyboard becomes even more appealing. The aesthetic, the performance, and the sound are very impressive, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this keyboard. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I will talk to y'all in the next one. Peace.